Welcome to the Friday night meeting of Keep It Simple. It's now with great pleasure and much gratitude that I introduce Charles and then Paris, who's going to share on the topic of the spiritual life is not a theory, we have to live it. So over to you, Charles. Thank you.
Why? 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 I'm Charles. I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic. And that was my response anytime somebody called on me to do something before I got here. My clean date is January 5th, 2015. I never came here to get sober, never came here to stop smoking crack, never came here to stop blowing dope, never came here to stop doing all types of abnormal things. Oh, that's right. It told me in the book. It said the mind of the alcoholic is quite as abnormal as his body. It never satisfied me to be told nothing. Or I guess it did satisfy y'all either, because y'all right here listening to me, huh? It's amazing how this works. They told me to focus on the similarities and not the differences. But I just couldn't see that far. I couldn't see past the bag. It was something about the literature where it said it's truly awful to admit that glass in hand, we have warped our minds for such a mental obsession for destructive behavior that only an act of providence could restore us to sanity. Now I have to look at the contents of the glass because by every method of substitution, I always tried to prove myself an exception to the rule. That ain't me. See, the first contents of the glass had some alcohol in it. Next thing you know, the glass had some weed in it. Next thing you know, the glass has some coke in it. Next thing you know, the glass has some dope in it. Next thing you know, it has some heroin in it. Then it has some ketamine in it. And then, see, I always used alcohol and drugs. I always misused people and I always abused Charles. It was totally abnormal how I treated myself. If anybody else had did to me the things that I did to myself, I would have had a major issue with them. But driven by 100 forms of fear, self-deception, self-delusion, and good old self-pity, I'd step on the toes of my fellows, and they retaliate seemingly without provocation. But invariably, we find that at some part in the past, we made decisions based on self which later placed us in a position to be harmed. Exactly what was that decision? I need to get one. I need to practice the insidious insanity of that first one. I need to get that sense of ease and comfort that comes from the first one. I'm grateful that it's a manifestation of analogy. See, the manifestation is all the work I put into getting one. The hiding, the ducking, the dodging, the lying, the deceiving, by every method of self deception, because I kept on telling myself that I don't have a problem. It was just one problem. 99 out of 100 people agreed that I had a problem with alcohol and drugs. But number 100 didn't see no problem with the way I was living. I mean, doesn't everybody stay in the abandoned building? Doesn't everybody live in the house of crates? Y'all don't know what the house of crates is? Y'all know what the milk crate is, right? Okay, because I know I'm talking to people over the pond, so I don't know if y'all level of despair is the same as ours over this side of the pond. But the house of crates is simple. When you come in, it's a circle and it's all crates. And the TV, it sits on crates. The bed, it sits on crates. Oh, there's no box spring. It's just a mattress and a bunch of crates up under it. The stove, it sits on crates. The toilet, it's a couple of crates with a plastic bag in the middle. And if you come over, you sit on crates too. But if it's your payday, we give you a pillow on your crate because we want you to know you special. We're talking about coming up out of the mad realm of King Alcohol, the terror. How the hell am I going to get some alcohol and drugs today? The bewilderment. Now that I got $2, where am I going to spend it at? Because everybody's asking for $10 to $20. The frustration. What you mean you not taking my shorts? If you don't take my shorts, you don't get my holes. And the desperation, willing to go to any length in pursuit of just one more. But it was that precious gift of desperation. Without that precious gift, I'd still be out there. You know how hard it is to get something now with all this electronic money around? You can't even panhandle right. You need Cash App to panhandle. You need a PayPal account to panhandle. Could you imagine if you couldn't shake a cup and get some money? Or you just sit across and I beg. You know, when your mouth won't act for what you want, but your eyes telling the story. We're just talking about how there's a certain distorted comfort in familiar pain. See, I had grown so accustomed to losing that I didn't even have a concept of winning because I viewed everything in the physical sense. Fair exchange ain't no robbery. All behind the line is mine. It's a stick up. Don't make it an ambulance pickup. Don't none come to a sleeper but a dream. How it works, had to break it down to me. It said until I let go of the old idea, the result was nil. Until I let go, absolutely. So I can't take these physical things into a spiritual way of life. Exactly what is that? Oh, that's the part where the religious people tell you that you're a spiritual being having a physical experience. So I'm already discombobulated. So I was born one way, and then I came over here this way, and then I didn't know where I was going, and I forgot to read the instructions. Oh yeah, the bag don't come with no instructions, or it don't say just put the straw in and take a little bit in each nostril until it starts to come down. Oh no, the pack of cigarettes said this is poison, subject to kill you. And that told me that that was the good stuff. Because I didn't want to go nowhere where wasn't nobody dying. That stuff wasn't working. Because you know they didn't know what they was doing. See, the spirit we talking about, it's that spirit that overcame me. It was the spirit that told me that one was too many and 1,000 wasn't enough. But the doctor's opinion broke it down for me. It told me that we believe and so suggests that the effects of alcohol on a chronic alcoholic is in fact a manifestation of an allergy, that the phenomenon of craving is limited to this particular class of individuals. It never occurs in the average temperate drinker. So when everybody else took a bump off the crack, they could actually talk. That wasn't my story. I would take a hit and immediately broke down into nonverbal communication. Mm, shh, shh. You know, our literature describes it as a peculiar mental twist, defined by Webster as a strange, unusual way of thinking that causes us to be fixated around a certain point. Shh. Y'all don't hear that? Y'all don't hear that mouse over there pissing on the cotton around the corner? Y'all got to be quiet. Shh. Oh, yeah, I love my alcoholism almost as much as I love my recidivism. I didn't know it was a direct correlation between alcoholism and recidivism. And for those of you that don't know, alcoholism is my utter inability to control my drinking due to a physical and mental dependence upon alcohol. And my recidivism is my utter inability to stop going to jail. Oh, yeah, y'all told me to keep coming back. They told me the same thing over there. The guy said, I got a couple of more kids to put through college. When I started going to jail in 1989, he was a young man in his 20s or 30s. When I stopped going to jail in 2013, he was about to retire. I went over there to visit my girlfriend. They had him on the visitor's deck. He said, I know you from somewhere. I said, yeah, you know me from Division 6, 1989. You was the CO on the deck. I'm just talking about how the pain y'all told me that that's the touchstone of all spiritual growth. Until the pain outweighed the pleasure, I wouldn't be willing to make a change. So why are we talking about the spiritual life is not a theory? So this ain't something y'all thought about? It must be lived. So I have to practice these principles as a means to expel the obsession? And what is the obsession? Me. I want what I want when I want it. And if you ain't gonna give it to me, get out the way. Oh, that reminds me of what my probation officer told me. You know, after my 13th successful dirty drop, she said, Mr. Hawkins, I don't know what you and that judge has going on, but if he doesn't reprimand you back into custody, I'm going to write a letter to the Illinois Bar Association. He's doing this state a disservice. You don't need a cup to know you're dirty. Just look at you. Just look at you. And it just kept on echoing through my head. And the only thing I could think about is I only got 2 bags of heroin, and this ain't enough to hold me till I get up out of here. And what am I gonna do? I'm just tired of wasting the state's property on you. I don't need a cup to know you're dirty. Just look at you. And I swear that's all she kept. Just look at you. Just look at you. And what you're talking about is when you're the evidence that you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. You know how when they release you, they got some contingencies. Y'all thought y'all was the only people that had promises? Oh, no, they got some promises over there at the county jail, too. She says, I'm going to give you until January 8th to produce a clean drop. And if you don't, and that judge doesn't reprimand you back into custody, I'm going to write a letter to the Illinois Bar Association. He's doing this state a disservice. I don't need a cup to know you're dirty. Just look at you. And everything ended with just look at you. Bill said it. No words could express the loneliness and despair that I felt in the bitter morass of self-pity. See, feelings aren't facts, but they are for real. Because so as a man thinketh, so he shall be. And when I got here, all scorecards read 0. I was mentally bankrupt. I was physically bankrupt, 6'1", 100 pounds on a fat day. I was spiritually bankrupt. I went to church. I wasn't go there looking for God. I went there because they had soul food dinners at the service. And the pastor pulled me up there in the prayer line, and he said, God told me to tell you so. See, at the time, I still thought I needed an intercessor, but let me think I am for all that I am. And what had happened was the pastor told me that God told him to tell me that if I could go 7 days, completion and perfection, abstaining from drinking and drugging, that he's going to give me 7 years of prosperity. And me and my carnal mind, all I could think about was I'm going to have a bankroll. I'm going to have a car that stops and I don't have to put my foot through the hole of it. And baby girl ain't going to go out and cheat on me. That was all I wanted. I didn't know that God was going to give me some hope. I didn't know that God was going to give me some faith. I didn't know that God was going to give me a level of honesty. To thy own self be true. See, I could tell you a million lies, but the only lie that's going to affect me is the one I tell me. And that's the great obsession of every abnormal drinker. That somehow, some way, it's going to be different this time. Because this time, y'all know what I'm going to do? I'm going to blow the dope and then I'm going to smoke the crack. And when that produce a bad result, then I'm going to smoke the crack and then I'm going to blow the dope. And when that produce a bad result, then I'm going to take a drink and then I'm going to blow the dope and then I'm going to smoke the crack and I'm going to save me some of the dope to help me calm down. This reminds me of when I had a nightmare on Elm Street. It was Christmas time. I couldn't get no heroin, so I had to get some methadone. And I took a teaspoon and didn't get the desired effect, so I took another. And then I took another and didn't get the desired effect, so I said this spoon is too small, so I went back and got a tablespoon. And then after I took a couple of tablespoons and still didn't get the desired effect, I surmised the rest of the methadone, and I said, this ain't enough to catch another felony about. I'm only a 13-time felon, so what's another one? And then all of a sudden, I took it all down. Well, needless to say, I started the trip in the front seat, and I was demanding to drive that, because I'm an expert driver and I can get us there in record time. And my sister said, looking at the condition you're in, why don't you just start off in the passenger seat? Somehow I was majestically transported from the front seat to the back seat. My nephews was using me as a ramp for their Hot Wheels cars, using me as the slope to. And all of a sudden, we got to Niagara Falls, and the people at customs ask you some real baffling questions. They ask you things like, what's your name? Where are you coming from? And the ever elusive, where are you going? The literature says, thus started one more trip to the asylum. When I came to at the very last hospital in America in Buffalo, New York, on Elm Street, right before you got to the Ambassador Bridge, My shirt was cut off me. My favorite sweatshirt was cut off of me. It was a whole lot of bright lights going on above me. My whole family was standing around and wasn't nobody praying. Y'all know what they were saying? That motherfucking Chucky did it again. I had fucking canceled Christmas. And much to my consternation, what had happened was when I came to it, they put me back in the car. The car was majestically going the wrong way. Because when I came to, I just had one single solitary thought. I wonder if they still gonna be working at the 24-hour spot when we get there. It wasn't a thought about I just canceled Christmas. It wasn't a damn thought about what are they gonna say. It wasn't a thought about the fact that I OD'd and almost died. Are they gonna be working? And why the hell is the car going back where we just left from? Ain't no dope back there. That's why I had to drink that damn method though. I'm just talking about how selfishness and self-centeredness, that to which we think is the root of our problem. So I had to get down to some root causes and conditions. That's why the literature said that once the spiritual malady is overcome, the disease, then we straighten out mentally and physically. Oh, they peeped that part in the step 3 prayer where they said, take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I will help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. See, the spiritual life is not a theory, it must be lived. How are you going to get better at utilizing something if you never practice it? See, AA's 12 steps are a group of principles, spiritual in their nature, which, if practiced as a means of life, will help expel the obsession to drink and make the sufferer happily, usefully whole. So you mean to tell me I get a happily ever after? They used a whole lot of adjectives to describe me, just like they told me in step 2 when they said that defiance is the outstanding characteristic of every alcoholic. So that's some traits we all got in common. But when I was out there, they used some adjectives to describe me too. All of them just happened to end with motherfucker. Good for nothing, motherfucker. Piece of shit ass, motherfucker. Rotten ass, motherfucker. And my all-time favorite, y'all ready for the all-time favorite? Stinking ass, motherfucker. Because my disease told me that if I change clothes, they might not be able to recognize me at the spot. Badly mangled. I'm talking about badly mangled. Full flight from reality, outright mental defectives. See, you had to be plural. There wasn't no one defect going on. I suffer from a disease where there is no known human cure. The only effective defense we have against the first one must come from a power greater than ourselves if we are indeed to recreate our lives. Why in the hell do I need to recreate my life? What's wrong with my life? Don't everybody live in the house of crates? Don't everybody make a tradition of canceling Christmas? Isn't everybody affectionately known as stinking ass motherfucker? I'm just talking about why in the world do I need to recreate my life? But Step 7 told me we're obliged between the pains of trying this program and the certain penalties for failing to do so. So I already know what the fuck a rotten, lousy, good for nothing motherfucker like me got coming if this shit don't work. I know precisely what I got coming. More misery, more pain, more shame, and more utter humiliation. I am not confused. That's why the steps are in the order in which they are. Because I got to be prepared to take that next step. See, proper preparation prevents poor performance. I got to have something to stand on. I had to learn how to trust infinite God rather than my finite self. I had to learn how to lean on my spirit as compared to leaning on my flesh. See, I must become less so that God could become greater. We talking about that giant prospector that struck that limitless load, man. I didn't know that this precious gift was going to continue to reap benefits. I thought that sobriety was enough. I didn't know that if a man think of that sobriety is enough, we find that man unthinking. I got tired of settling for less and then getting less than what I settled for. This program promises me a life more abundant. I didn't know that the closer I am to you, the closer that we are to God. I had to stop seeking the approval of God and stop seeking the approval of man and start seeking the approval of God. We just talking about a wholesale miracle that took place. I mean, because the revolution will not be televised. See, I had to go deep inside myself. I had to pull out some of that shame. I had to get rid of some of that guilt. I had to get rid of some of that remorse. And I had to get rid of a whole lot of that bitterness because I was pissed the fuck off because my family, it wasn't supposed to be this way. You know, my dad retired from American Airlines. He was the chief mechanical engineer. My mom retired from the University of Illinois, Chicago. She was the chief financial officer in charge of financial aid for the foreign exchange students. My brother won a Medal of Honor and a Medal of Valor, served 26 years in the United States Army. My older sister is an actual biophysicist. She's a doctorate, the provost of a college in Virginia. My little sister is a CFO of an engineering firm, and I'm just your old run-of-the-mill alcoholic. I'm just your old run-of-the-mill crackhead. I'm just your old run-of-the-mill dope fiend. It was not supposed to be like this. And then y'all told me that nothing, absolutely nothing happens by happenstance. To complain about anything would be to complain about God's handiwork. And see, the other people, they told me that thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Well, if anybody knows, a rod is used for finding your way, and the staff is used for cracking your ass upside the head when you get in the way. Oh, yeah, that pain is the touchstone of all spiritual progress, baby. You gonna either get it standing up or you gonna get it laying down, but you gonna get it. I didn't know that when all else fails, that intensive work with another alcoholic or crackhead would generally save the day. God, in his infinite wisdom, chose this group of men and women to be purveyors of his goodness. And through them whom he selected, he went not to the scientists or statesmen or others, he went straight to the alcoholic, the so-called weakling of the world. Well, he may have said unto thee that I have entrusted a power beyond all recognition, the power to heal other alcoholics. See, I got to keep focused not so much on what needs to be changed in the world as in what needs to be changed in me and my attitudes about it. It was always your fault till I started digesting some large chunks of truth about myself. The blame game is a cold piece. I blame 32 years of misery on alcohol and drugs just to find out that ain't even the damn problem. The drinking and drugging is but a symptom of what's actually wrong. It was something wrong long before the alcohol and drugs. Y'all want me to prove it to y'all? I'm looking around. I don't see no heads bobbing. I said, do y'all want me to prove to y'all that something was wrong long before the alcohol and drugs came? Y'all ready? Y'all ready? Buckle up. Buckle up. Hey, Lauren, I see you, girl. Y'all want me to prove it right now? Here we go. It was a sober mind that told me to get the first one. There wasn't no alcohol involved, wasn't no coke involved, wasn't no dope involved, wasn't no sex involved. And suddenly the thought came to my mind, you know what? What's going on, hustle man? Hey, Chucky, it's a good day to fuck our life up. Let's go get one. Doop, 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 doop. And thus I strolled off into oblivion. See, when I got here, the year was 1989. These old motherfuckers were sitting around the table smoking this shit. I said, these motherfuckers can't even talk. They can't even read. Fuck they know, man. How the fuck they gonna help me? You know, I suffered from a severe case of know-it-allism. I heard that question you was asking me. I know. Yeah. So I left. I got back here 12 years later. Now the year is 2001. And one of them smart ass motherfuckers say, you know, son, that Einstein will miss it and Bozo will get it. And I fashioned myself as the intellectually self-sufficient type. So I say, oh, this program will never work. So I got back here 12 years later. And now the year is 2013. And I got the world's greatest sponsor. And he told me only make meetings with pretty girls. He told me to only make meetings where they got hot cooked food, no cookies and coffee for me. I need a whole dinner to make the meeting. 13 successful dirty drops later, being promised those 3 years in the Illinois Department of Corrections. Finally, I stood in the sunlight at last. I was willing to do whatever you people told me to do. You know, we got three indispensable spiritual principles to this program. It's called honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. And this ain't a how program. See, I had to read how it works long enough to learn who it works for. That willingness must come first. Am I willing to do what's necessary to get better? Am I willing to practice these principles as a means to expel the obsession? Am I willing to surrender all to the Father of light that presides over us all? Because I'll go to God and say, I'm sick of this defect, God. And when God goes to take it away, I say, hey, man, put my shit down, God. I love my lying. I love my deceitfulness. I love my self-centeredness. Don't take that away yet, God. I still need that in reserve in case this shit don't work. Oh, ye of little faith. Oh, that's the spiritual principle embodied in step 3, right? What exactly is faith? It's the evidence of things not seen and the assurance of the things hoped for. See, I had to learn the difference between assurance and insurance. See, insurance is for after I fuck up. Assurance is what I got coming. Ain't it nice to have an assurance of a daily reprieve that's strictly contingent upon the maintenance of my spiritual condition? And how do I do maintenance on my spiritual condition? It's simple. Many meetings, many chances. Some meetings, some chances. No meetings, no chance. Remember what happened to the last time you was fucking with you? Yes, I do hustle, man. What did happen? I went and got one. And what happened after that? It took me 12 years to get back to safety. That's what they told me in the chapter to the agnostics. They told me that we traveled far along the bridge of reason just to get to the desired shore of faith. Because faith allows me to do things that otherwise I couldn't do. All it takes is a mustard seed of faith to tip that scale. So now, if a mustard seed of faith could tip the scale, imagine what a whole mountain full of mustard seeds could change. The revolution will not be televised. Why? Because personal recovery depends upon AA's anonymity. You know, the spiritual principle embodied in all of our 12 traditions. The humility is the spiritual principle embodied in all of 12 of our steps, because without some degree of humility, no alcoholic crackhead could recover. I'm so grateful that the doctor specialized in the treatment of alcohol and drug addiction, because this program is a remedy for thousands of such situations. And what is a situation? A situation is a chance I get to be better, because many situations will arise out of the phenomenon of craving that will make a man make the supreme sacrifice rather than continue to fight. See, I did not know that I was in a fight for my life. I was in a fight for my spirit, my soul, my being. I just thought I had a problem with alcohol. I just thought I had a problem with weed. I just thought I had a problem with crack. I didn't know that the inner child was dying. I didn't know that I had disqualified myself from winning. My mind told me that if I don't finish nothing, won't nobody expect nothing of me. See, we learned we had to fully concede to our innermost selves that we were alcoholics. It wasn't until the moment of surrender that I was able to get some peace. Whoever thought that you would win by stop fighting? I had no idea that the disease was undefeated. I would always climb in the ring. And in this corner, standing 6'1", 126 pounds, Chucky. Chucky, ladies and gentlemen. And here comes the disease. Standing 5'11", weighing 212 pounds. Iron Mike Tyson. Tyson, ladies and gentlemen. And I climbed my goofy ass in the ring with the champ. He beat me, stumped me. I'd be running, roping, doping, and all that. And all of a sudden, he catch me one good time. Down goes Chucky. Down goes Chucky. And I come to, and I'd be back at the Cook County Department of Corrections talking about what happened again. See, it's not the yets that I'm terrified about. It's them goddamn agains. If you guys have not learned anything else by the words that I've said to you this evening, just keep in mind that there is no physical solution to a spiritual problem. But as long as my spiritual needs are met, then all of my physical problems will be reduced to a point of comfort. I'm Charles. I'll keep coming back.
Oh, thank you so much, Charles. And now, great pleasure. Over to you, Paris. Come in, Paris.
Hey, hello, family. And I say family because guess what? We're all related because when we come into a meeting, our last name is either addict or alcoholic. So that means we're related. So I'm so glad to meet all of my 92 family members on this screen. And thank you so much, Lisa, and the whole team that asked me to come out. And I couldn't think of anyone better but Charles. We chair also a meeting over on the Mustard Seed line at 8 a.m. every Sunday. So if you hadn't heard enough of us, trust me, every Sunday at Sunday Spiritual Wake Up, we are there. If we can start off this portion with a quiet time, followed by the 7-step prayer, so I can ask the God of my understanding to speak through me and allow me to carry the A message and not the mess. My Creator, I am now willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. I pray that you remove from me every single defect of character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. Grant me strength as I go out from here to do your bidding. Amen. Oh my God, I am excited. Let me tell you, I've been traveling all morning, right? So I was in Chicago, then I flew to Hawaii, and now I'm somewhere in Europe with you guys. So I'm excited. Look at that. And I didn't have to pay a penny. All I had to do was suit up and show up. Extremely grateful. My sobriety date is January the 10th, 2001. I just celebrated a quarter of a century without a drink. That is a miracle. One day at a time, 1 hour, 1 minute, 1 second of dealing with life on life's terms for 25 years without picking up or choking somebody out. That's a miracle. And I give it all to my higher power and a plan of action that works under all conditions. A good friend of ours, me and Charles, her name was Lois Stevens. And that's why when you asked, I thought about her. She passed. She was a remarkable woman and a service worker here in Chicago. And she would always have these programs in the summertime at a place called Rest in Chicago, where she'd have a speakathon with speakers come in and share. And it would always be the spiritual life is not a theory. We have to live it. I didn't understand that I had a spiritual malady and a soul sickness. All those years, I was killing myself slowly on the installment plan. I thought things were outside of me that were affecting my insides, right? Come to find out, when I got introduced to you amazing miracles, 92 miracles on this line, and you laid this plan of action out to me, you showed me that, guess what? It wasn't you that had the problem or the outside that had the problem. It was me that had the problem. And alcohol and crack was only, guess what? A symptom. So this is what it looks like, or what it looked like. I picked up the first drink that set off the phenomenon of craving when I was getting ready to go to high school. It was a bottle of red Irish Rose infused wine. I never read that it was infused wine until I got sober and somebody said, that's infused wine that you were drinking, right? I'm like, really? So it was infused with a whole lot of different spirits, right? So when I put it to my lips, it went into my body, it hit my bloodstream, It went to my brain. It said more. Because for the first time I can remember, now look, I hadn't been alive that long, right? I'm 14. I was relieved of me, the bondage of self, right? The third step prayer, I love the third step prayer when it uses the word wilt, because in order for me to become something new, to be recreated, I have to wilt, die away, and then I can be restored and recreated, right? So when I picked up that first drink and it set off that phenomenon of craving, as Dr. Silkworth described, I wanted more because I never wanted to feel less than again. I never wanted to have low self-esteem and lack of self-worth and feel like I wasn't secure in the skin that God gave me, because when I drank, I didn't care. And I drank for the effect. I didn't drink because the bottle was looking special. I didn't drink drinks because they had umbrellas or, I don't know, fancy little salt around them. I didn't give a damn. I wanted to know, was it 100 proof? Because I needed proof that it could get me to oblivion. So I drank alcoholically through high school. Yeah, academically sound. I could pass the test. I could even help other people pass the test. But I drank every day. And now high school for me was a little bit different from probably some of your experiences, because all of a sudden somebody said, hey, you want to try this? And you know, you can't tell an alcoholic like me, do you want to try this? Because there's somebody else who said, no, you don't want none of that, man. Be like, no, I want to try it. Now I'm snorting some shit. I don't even know what it is. Next thing you know, guess what, Lisa? I want more, because it's giving me an effect. Now I got the alcohol going. Now I got the brown dope going. They call it Karachi here in Chicago. So then all of a sudden somebody said, you know what, it seems like you be drifting off sometimes. You need to learn how to regulate that. I'm like, so what do you suggest? They said, how about some cocaine? I said, oh, that's too expensive. No, I know somebody who knows somebody, we can get it on the cheap. So now I'm in high school. I'm drinking alcoholically. I'm snorting manufactured heroin daily, and I'm snorting cocaine. I got the trifecta going, right? But I'm still moving, right? I'm still doing stuff. I'm still excelling. So guess what that told me? You don't have a problem. Even though my hospitalizations said that I had a problem, right? I just said I didn't regulate it the right way. That's what happened. I wouldn't tell my family that, because I told my family I wouldn't do it again. And I'm sorry. But I had untreated alcoholism, untreated addiction. I couldn't stop even when I wanted to stop. I could say I could stop. I could say I wanted to stop. I could tell you I was going to stop, but I didn't have a plan of action, and I hadn't hit bottom yet to be sufficiently beaten to say I'm willing to stop. So that continued, right? I get to college, things are good. It's good for me. I'm still drinking. I'm taking me to every situation that I go to, every geographic move. Guess who I took with me? My untreated alcoholism, my soul sickness, my spiritual malady. And I drank to give ease and comfort to the spiritual malady. It wasn't anything outside of me, but I didn't know that. I didn't know how I was being shaped and molded at the time for something far better than what I could have even imagined. And it wasn't even anything that I could imagine. It talks about in the big book that we have these, that we suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders, right? When I first got here, guess what I thought they were talking about, Lisa? You, all of y'all. It's like, yeah, these people crazy. I see it. I mean, have you listened to them? So fast forward, I'm in Maryland, I'm in school, I'm doing all these amazing things. I meet this wonderful woman. She loves me unconditionally. But guess who she married? She married an alcoholic who masqueraded as a normal person. Did you get that part? Masqueraded as a normal person. She asked me one day, she said, Paris? I was like, yes. I was sober. I said, yes. She's like, are you an alcoholic? I said, how dare you? I go to school, I work, I provide, I'm encouraging other people to do better with their lives. How could you say that? I've had some challenges, yes, but I am not an alcoholic. They live out in the streets, the gutter. You know, look at me, I'm polished. Full flight from reality, right? And so then I got this thing called, it talks about badly mangled, right? I get a bright idea after being put out, because she would put me out. She get tired. People get tired. She would get tired of me. So she would do the garbage bag act. Hey, Paris, what's the garbage bag act? That's when all your shit is in a garbage bag in front of the door, right? So I'm moving back in, Abby, right? And so I got the couch, the love seat. You know the story. I'm on an expressway. My sister-in-law is going 85, 95 miles an hour. I get a bright idea to make a decision, to take an action, to adjust the couch or the love seat. I didn't know which one it was because I'm drunk. So I get up, and that's all I remember for the next 3 months. I was in a coma. I fell out the back of that pickup truck on the expressway, badly mangled, skin torn off, head ripped open in the front and the back, badly mangled. Coma for 3 months. But guess what? When I finally started coming to, even though I got the mummy kit on, you know, the gauze, the mummy kit, because they couldn't stitch me up because they said I needed to have air back there because they were still pulling out glass and asphalt. So my sister-in-law rolls me out. I'm pumping morphine. I can drink Ensure through the little hole, right? I can also smoke a Newport 100 cigarette through that hole. So she rolls me out to this area where I can smoke, and I have a bright idea. She said, Paris, is there anything you need, baby? I mumble clearly through that gauze, I could go for a drink. We'll forget the pains of even a week or a month ago that places in that position to be harmed. Who was harming me? Me. I didn't know that I was an alcoholic with untreated alcoholism, and I suffered from grave emotional and mental disorders, and I didn't have any coping skills to deal with what? Life on life's terms. Good, bad, or indifferent. I could never stay stable with happy. I couldn't stay stable with sad. I couldn't stay stable with mad. I was unstable, but I masqueraded and covered it with alcohol and other stuff. Fast forward. I moved to Chicago, right? Back to Chicago from Maryland. God did for me what I couldn't do for myself. I'm working in London. I was staying at the Spanish Club, which is in London. That's where we had an apartment set up there when we worked over there and lived over there and all that stuff. And I used to go to this place called the Phoenix up the street. Then I could go up to Piccadilly Circus, Piccadilly Circus or Square. I could go up there, go where the Beatles would be. All that shit is blurry to me because I took me with me drinking. I don't even know how I kept the job, Lisa. When they told me, they said, we're going to get you a yard of ale. I said, a yard? I was like, what the hell is a yard? They came back with this yard of Guinness. I said, oh my God, I have arrived. I'm never leaving. And everybody I work with drank. And I was like, how are we accomplishing anything? But we were. God was doing for me what I couldn't do for myself. Promotion after promotion. I'm just like, my administrative assistant, I told her one day, I said, how did we get that plan together? She's like, you talked about it yesterday and we put it all together. I said, really? Couldn't remember. CRS couldn't remember shit. But God was doing for me what I couldn't do for myself, right? So fast forward, I do all these spaces and places until God got me in position. The position God got me in was to be able to hit bottom. Bottom for me wasn't a feeling. It wasn't a place. It wasn't a thing. It was a condition where I didn't want to live and I didn't want to die, but I needed something. So how I got to that space was I was introduced to the department, to the Illinois Department of Corrections. Not the penitentiary, but the county, right? County jail. So usually I would go in there and they would tap me on the hand, like, let him go home. Or my family would have attorneys come in from everywhere and I would be out before I knew it. This time, nobody came. I'm looking around Gregory in California. I'm like, this is unusual. I'm usually in, then out. I said, this is, wonder what's going on here. God was doing for me what I couldn't do for myself. So all of a sudden they told me that where I was going. They were like, you're going to Division 9, max. I said, what is max? Because when you're in jail, you got to dummy down. I said, hey, homie, what is Division 9? He's like, that's where we send the killer. That's where they send the killers. I was like, oh, Lord, Lord, Lord. So I started shaking the gate. The guy takes me back to the processor, right? And they don't normally do this. Once you know where you going, that's it. You know what I'm talking about, Gregory? That's it. You go where you going. God doing for me, giving me vital information. All of a sudden, I'm sitting in front of the process. I said, I had to let him know I was intelligent. I said, I think there's been a clerical error or a glitch in the computer system, and I don't want you to be harmed, and I don't want to intentionally harm myself. So maybe you want to look up that data again because there are glitches. So he starts to type in, and it says, no bond, MAX. I said, oh. I said, now we have the shit. We got to stay in this place for 9 months with killers. These people were in there for murder ones. I'm like, I didn't kill anybody. I stole some CDs. So I'm in here with these people that do these things, that will do these things to me, right? God doing for me what I couldn't do for myself. He protected me because everybody that went in there didn't come out, and everybody that went in there didn't come out the right way. Trust me. So all of a sudden they say the attorney is smiling. She's so happy. She's energetic. I'm in court. I'm like, yeah, I won. She's like, so they have an offer. I said, okay. I'm like, in my head, I'm going home, period. She says, the offer is 6 to 30 years. I said, oh, I hadn't heard that kind of language before, right? So I said, can you elaborate on what 6 to 30 years is? 6 to 30 years in the penitentiary. I said, well, do they have anything else? So she thought about it, see, a closed mouth don't get fed. So all of a sudden I'm sitting, she said, well, they have a program. However, it's for alcoholics and drug addicts. I had to think about it. Ashley in Iowa, I said, that's interesting. So you don't go to the penitentiary with that program? She's like, no, you don't. I said, well, give me a sec. Like, alcoholic death, spiritual life, not go to the penitentiary? I got to think about it. So all of a sudden I go to the cell and I call my sister. I say, sis, I said, hey, she's like, what happened, baby? I said, they're talking about 6 to 30 years. She's like, oh my God. I said, yeah. However, they have a program, but it's for alcoholics and drug addicts. She's like, you took it, right? I said, well, why would I take it? Because you're an alcoholic and a drug addict. I said, I am. God doing for me what I couldn't do for myself. And it wasn't about change. It was about not going and be changed in the penitentiary. So I took the program, right? I'm in this recovery home, Abby. I can't hear anything they were saying because you know who I was still listening to? Me and my ego, me and my pride, me and my denial. Those are the only people I was thinking about, were listening to. The last person I drank with, right? I couldn't hear the solution. And then when I saw them coming in with baskets and they would be putting money in there, where does my mind go, Lisa? They're being paid for this. I'm not listening to these people. I go to lectures like this. I know what's happening here, right? I didn't know anything. Come to find out it was the 7 tradition. You know what I mean? Until one guy said, listen to the similarities and not the differences. The cotton was out of my ears and it was in my mouth, and I heard the fact. I heard what I needed to hear at that moment. Every time he picked up, he couldn't stop, even when he wanted to stop. Once I got started, nobody could stop me. No human power could stop me once I started. Didn't matter where I was living, didn't matter who I was sleeping with, didn't matter where I was at. When I picked up, I couldn't stop. And for the first time I got acceptance that I was an alcoholic, I had a problem. You guys offered me the solution. You laid the spiritual kit of tools at my feet. But guess what? I wanted to switch that up because I can do this myself. I'm smart. I know stuff, and I'm smart. It's a book. It's a 12 and 12. I will go to your meetings to help you. And that's what I did. and I would have spiritual conversations with myself. I would tell myself what this literature meant, and I would be judging on Judgment Row. That's sitting in the back. I was on Judgment Row. He ain't working on nothing. So all of a sudden, after 11 months of the Paris program of Rita, restless, irritable, discontented, angry, I drank again. Why wouldn't I drink again? There was no solution. There was no sufficient substitute. And I drank for relief from me again. But when I picked up that first drink of Ice House after an AA meeting, guess what it said this time? What took you so damn long? Because I didn't have a sufficient substitute. And you guys had offered your unconditional love to me. But I still had animalistic behavior. I still had pride. I still had envy. These were at an all-time high because they were untreated. So when I finally got to my sister's house after picking up a little alcohol, as much crack as I could afford, here's the insanity, right? My sister, I want to still protect my disease, right? I get to my sister's house asking her for all my money, and she asked the important question. I was talking to a sponsee the other day, and he was like, remember your sister asked you that question? I was like, yeah. She said, Paris, have you been drinking? I said, yes. She said, you been smoking crack? My eyes were about this big. I said, no, not at all. See, I wanted to still protect the disease, right? I still wanted to masquerade and pretend. She said, Paris, do they have any managers or supervisors in that program? I said, no, they don't have any managers or supervisors. I got real sober then, Abby. I said, they have sponsors. She said, that's what you need because you don't know everything. I suffer from this unique thing called know-it-allism. I know everything. What did Charles just say? Bozo can get it, but Einstein will miss it. Intellect, right? Humility must come first, then intellect. What is humility? Teachability. Learning to learn, unlearning what I learned and learning something new so I don't have to pick up a drink over the conditions of my day. When I finally surrendered and got that sponsor, I didn't even like him. But I loved that he carried the message and the principles that he stood on. I didn't say just recite, but that he stood on. Every time he shared, he was talking about a life condition that he went through, and he had to use a step and a principle on. Principles are never in conflict. And guess what? They help and they work. So when I got that sponsor, we made an honest beginning on all 12 steps. I didn't like him. You know why I didn't like him? Because he was a Cook County sheriff. You know, we were on two sides of two opposing teams. But I wanted what he had. He wasn't drinking and killing himself on the installment plan. And he was living a better life than what he could imagine. He even retired from there when he didn't think he was going to retire. I started getting hope shots, seeing all the people on the line and people in the rooms talking about how they were recovering and how life was presenting itself and they weren't drinking. So when I made an honest beginning on all 12 steps, my sponsor said, now you carry this message the way I gave it to you that was outlined in the book. So remember I told you about everything was in order? Everything that I've experienced has been in divine order so I can be uniquely qualified to carry a message and help another alcoholic who's suffering from those first 20 days, who's suffering in those first 30 days, who's still trying to figure this out because I've experienced that for a quarter of a century. I've seen people come. I've seen people go. I've seen people grow. I've seen people die. I've seen people stay. My only job, my first job in AA is to stay sober and help another alcoholic to achieve sobriety. I thought it was a whole lot of other jobs, Gregory and Tanya. I said, well, aren't you supposed to do this? No, your job is to help someone who can't help themselves, who has no clue what this is, but I need to be armed with the facts about me. I can't transmit something I don't have. I don't give out opinions. You know what opinions are? Spiritual killers. If I haven't experienced it, I haven't went through it, I'm not sharing it with you when you ask me for help. Because I don't want to deny anyone the integrity of their experience, and I don't want to share anything that's not experience-based and how I overcame it or went through it and grew through it, because anything I go through, I grow through. Every day, every moment of the day is not always kicking the can, but I have not had a bad moment. This is in a quarter of a century since I've been sober. I've had bad moments, but I haven't had a bad day. went through a divorce in this Design for Living with a normie. What's really normal though? With a we were married for 16, 17 years. But guess what? I didn't drink over the relationship because guess what? She wasn't my higher power. And she couldn't spare me from what I would have went through if I did pick up a drink. Did it hurt? Hell yeah. Did I recover? Yes. Am I okay today? Yes. They tell me when I go through something, I'm getting ready to grow through and it's going to be stretching, right? It's spiritual growth. Because here's the interesting part. By going through something, I get closer to God if I utilize God. If I cooperate with his power, guess what? I got a chance to be able to share that same detailed information with another alcoholic. They don't have to drink about it. This is what I did. Pandemic hits. Boom. What to do? The opposite of addiction is connection, right? We didn't know what this world would look like. But look at this. We have an amazing community where I can go anywhere on the planet if I want help. I don't have an excuse not to make a meeting. The only excuse is that I just want to be miserable that day. Because this is what I also found out. Meeting makers make it. The more meetings I make, the better I feel, and the better I'm able to deal with life on life's terms, period, without the first drink. I got a gang of work projects, right, that I was supposed to be. All of a sudden, I get the hit, Paris. You know, you hear after that. You hear after that. I'm like, what is God doing? Guess what God was doing? He's getting me ready. So I'm not in my head on future tripping. And I'm not in the past on, I shoulda, I coulda did, I wish I. No, because right now I'm with my family, and guess where I'm at? In the present. That's the gift, to be present in the moment. God is in the present. He's not in the future. He's not in the past. He's in the right now. And right now, I'm alive, I'm sober, and I'm a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. Do I have a lot of life stuff going on? Hell yeah. But he knew where I needed to be. He knows the treatment I need. He knows that I need the connection. He knows that I need the protection. He knows that I need to be with this family that covers me and lets me know I'm loved. He loved me so much, he made me an alcoholic so that I could be a purveyor of his message. So I could see these lights come on in the newcomer's eyes. So I could be vital in not only my life, but my grandchildren's life, my children's life. This is a gift. I have to read this. And this is in the chapter, Into Action. Yes, there is a long period of reconstruction ahead, but we must take the lead. A remorseful mumbling that we are sorry won't fit the bill at all. We ought to sit down with the family and frankly analyze the past as we now see it, being very careful not to criticize them. Their defects may be glaring, but the chances are that our own actions are partly responsible. So we clean house with the family, asking each morning in meditation that our Creator show us the way of patience, tolerance, kindliness, and love. I got to show patience, kindly, tolerance, and love to myself too. You guys have taught me to love the alcoholic. And don't beat yourself up with a bat or anything that can damage. Use a feather, as Linda C. likes to say. Because guess what? We're not killing ourselves. I'm not killing myself, and we're not killing ourselves on the installment plan anyway. I beat myself up enough before I got here. Then it says the spiritual life is not a theory. We have to live it. Unless one family expresses a desire to live on spiritual principles, we think we ought not to urge them. We should not talk incessantly to them about spiritual matters. They will come in time. Our behavior will convince them more than our words. We must remember that 10 or 20 years of drunkenness will make a skeptic out of anyone. I have my mother in my life. She's 84 years old. She used to cross the street on me when she saw me coming. That same sister, I'm able to hug her, to kiss her, to love on her. My grandchildren are in my life. I was on a meeting with Abby, and I had gotten a call about my children a couple days about being about to be taken to DCF custody. in Orlando, Florida. Because I'm sober, I was able to get those children with their dad and get them to Chicago safely. None of these things could happen if I wasn't a sober man working on the alcoholic that did the drinking on a daily basis. I have a roof over my head. I have food in the refrigerator, and I have clothes on my back. These are things I did not have when I first got here. Anybody new, stay. It gets better. And you'll be able to deal with life on life's terms without the first drink, no matter what. Because guess what I'm a part of? The No Matter What Club. And faith is fantastic adventures in trusting him. He didn't bring me this far to let me drown. And nobody on this line has to pick up a drink for the rest of their lives one day at a time. Stick with it. Don't quit it. One day you get it. Thank you for allowing me to treat my alcoholism so I don't have a slip. And what's a slip? Sobriety lost its priority. With that, I stay teachable.